Hi. I want to talk about an unusual skill that I learned early in my working life. More than 40 years ago, I was an employee on the Canadian National Railways. I operated a one-man train station for 8 months. This was in the small town of Kitwanga, which is halfway between New Hazelton and Terrace in northwestern British Columbia. The place has some fascinating native history and some stunning mountain scenery. A short walk from the train station, there was a line of almost a dozen totem poles. When the clouds cleared, which happens rarely, the glacier-topped ridge known as the Seven Sisters overhanged the far side of the Skeena River. I had an awful lot of free time in Kitwanga. There was plenty of time to develop skills that have remained useful throughout my adult life. For there I had my first experience of bookkeeping, accounting, and typing. I learned to bake bread and make pies. I gained self-confidence, responsible work habits, managerial skills, and the ability to handle both boredom and stress. Today, though, I want to concentrate on job skills for which I found very little use in my later life. For on the railway, I spent many hours studying the Uniform Code of Operating Rules. The Uniform Code was used throughout North American railways. It provides a standard system allowing trains to safely follow each other, pass at sidings, and stop for emergencies. An essential skill for a station operator was to speak and spell fast. Most railway tracks are now controlled with a centralized traffic control system operated by a central dispatching office. Nowadays, reliable radio communications are assumed, but on the BC North line of the CNR in 1974, traffic control was still done with paper train orders. In the most common situation, written orders were provided to trains leaving two section points such as Terrace and Kitwanga. A common type of order might provide a strict schedule for train number 1, whilst train number 2 is required to take the siding and avoid the first train's schedule. The order was issued to the station operators, who then physically gave it to the train engineers. To issue such an order, the train dispatcher in Prince George would call both station operators on the private company phone system. He would then say something like, "Kitwanga 19Y West, copy 5. This would tell me to change the westbound station signal to yellow, to grab a multi-page Form 19, and prepare to make 5 carbon copies. I had managed to skip this mandatory typing test. So for me, writing train orders involved printing hard to make legible copies. I saved the first train order that I wrote on my very own, and here it is. The dispatcher would write each word of the train order in his book at the exact same time as he dictated them. Afterwards, each recipient would repeat all the words back. The dispatcher then underlined each word in his order book at the same moment that it was repeated correctly. These orders might be a full page long and go to a number of recipients. To keep the process both quick and accurate, all involved had to pay close attention, speak fast, enunciate clearly, and spell out all place names, numbers, and times. As written in the Uniform Code, in transmitting and repeating train orders by telephone, train order numbers and the numbers of trains and engines and the address will be pronounced and then spelled out letter by letter. All stations and numerals in the body of the order must be plainly pronounced and then spelled out letter by letter. Thus, Aurora, A-U-R-O-R-A, and 105, O-N-E, and N-O-U-G-H-T-F-I-V-E. In that very first train order that I saved, engine 4328 West is instructed to meet train number 886, engine number 9167, at the Nash siding instead of Kitwanga. Only this train order would be read out something like X to 4328 FRTY to TWNTY EIGHT West WST meet number 886 EIGHT EIGHT SIX, engine 9167 NINTY SXTY SCVN at NASH NASH instead of KWNG EG. EG was the dispatcher's initials. Obviously, obtaining speed took a lot of practice. Among starting at a new station, one of the first tasks was to study the local schedule and practice the names of all the nearby sidings. From Prince George, PRNC-GRG, to Pateros, WRICE, from Endako, NDAKO, to Usk, USK, I spent many hours in practice spelling the station names. In place of 0 or O, the term used was not in a GHT. All mileages and times are written out with words and numerals. 1200 is noon. To eliminate any possibility of confusing 12 o'clock noon and 12 o'clock midnight, the Canadian Railways simply refused to acknowledge the concept of midnight. The very next minute after Tuesday at 23:59 to WNTY TRWE FIFTYNINE is 23:59 is Wednesday at 1 NUGC NUGC ONE 1. I later worked for a few weeks on the BC Railway. This example reads train number 1 ONE wait at Lillooet LILLOOET until 1200 TWLVE HUNDRD 1200. BC Rail had one station name that I always had difficulty spelling fast. South Williams Lake, SUTHWILLIAMSLAKE. After the Form 19s are created, copies must be delivered to each train crew. With a yellow signal train order, the standard method was to hoop the orders up to the train. The order was folded and tied to a loop of string. The string was attached to clips on a Y-shaped bamboo stick. The approaching train would slow to perhaps 30 miles an hour. I would stand just a couple short paces from the track, hold the stick steady, and calmly wait for the train. The engineer would lean out and slip his arm through the loop as he rushed by. I delivered many train orders late at night while standing in the winter snow. Imagine the scene as an 80-car freight train thundered down upon me and a great swirl of snow and light. The train's whistle would blast out a warning for the road crossing. Finally, when 50 yards away, the engineer would dim the dazzling headlight. It took great determination to calmly stand at my position on the platform just a couple paces from the track. This multi-sensory experience would wake me from my dreams for a decade afterwards. It is amazing how some long neglected and now useless job skills, such as spelling fast out loud, are never entirely lost.